Welcome to the Brain Factor Podcast with Joy and Laura, powered by Meridian Healthcare, approaching wellness with heart, one life at a time, one community at a time. This is a science-based conversation about real life. Our goal? To leave you with a few nuggets of wisdom, smile on your face, and maybe even a laugh or two. So let's jump in.
Hi, and welcome to the Brain Factor. I'm Laura, and I'm joined here as always by Joy. And today we want to dive a little bit deeper. We've talked about anxiety before, but I want to specifically talk about the anxiety that strikes at night and why that happens, how that feels. Like literally you were fine 6 hours ago.
Right.
You go to lay down and go to sleep. Why is that when everything suddenly comes up, right? Because I have that experience. I know a lot of other people have that experience. You have that
sometimes
experience.
that happens.
And you know what's different about that piece, and just I want to explore that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that during the day we're very busy. We have lots of things going on. Our mind is engaged in lots of things. We've got emails coming in and phone calls and
lots of distractions.
We've got a structure for the day. Probably most of us do with a job. So we have a full day planned out maybe of what needs to get done, or our time is occupied. So there's a lot of stimulation.
I think that's the big thing is the distractions that the day affords us. But you know, even without the distractions, like there's still an element of being like sort of mostly okay during the day, like when this type of thing hits us, and like feeling capable and feeling like more resilient and being able to access those tools a little bit better in those daylight hours. And then we go to lay down and we have like these racing thoughts and we're replaying conversations in our mind and we don't know how to
cope with them or deal with them.
And then that's when, like, you know, when we're stressed during the day, it's usually about like the things that are going on or like the overarching things that are stressing us out, right? But then at night it seems to be this like overarching like feelings of dread, doom, you know, like all of that that really heavy feelings that come, and then you can't sleep, and then you can't, you know, and that's
it's kind of related to just in general how things are a little creepier at night,
right? Well, that's
you can't
actually
see, it's dark,
and one of the things that I did find when I was researching this is that darkness actually does amplify threat, and that made so much sense to me, because if you think about like how is that used in movies and in any like media that's created
the screen really
to make us
dark
feel
on
bad,
you,
right? To make us feel creepy or unsafe, or, you know, and darkness does amplify our perception of threat. And so I do think that also made sense to me too, because there are times when, you know, you're struggling, like we go through phases in life and we might be in a period where we're struggling with a lot of anxiety and we're kind of getting through the day and we can't sleep because the anxiety is hitting us, but we nap just fine
during the day.
Right. You know, I'd like to dismiss that as like, well, I'm just so exhausted by then. Right. But like, and that there's probably an element of truth to that. But I think there are some things that are happening at night specifically that are really exasperating that situation. And one of them is hormonal releases. Right? Like, when is our cortisol spiking? When is our adrenaline spiking? Right? During the day, we're running on adrenaline.
Right.
And that hormone is very prevalent. We're using it up. And then our cortisol drops at night. Yeah. And so I think that contributes to a lot as well. Our system sort of shifts towards rest. And because of that, I think that's why the distractions are so much more effective during the day. Right? It's not that there's an absence of distractions at night, but our body is making that shift. Yeah. And so what are we occupying?
So like at night they'll call it rest and digest.
And right.
During the day, what is the flip side of that?
Oh my gosh,
I don't think of it. It's we both got caught off guard here. I threw it out there, but I can't think of what it's called during the day. But yeah, your sympathetic and your parasympathetic
like our
nervous
whole
systems, it switches over.
Yes.
And at night you're in rest and digest, even though I can't remember right now what daytime is called.
What the opposite of that is.
Yeah,
but it's the opposite of that. Trust us.
So you're using a whole
But
a whole different set. And well, you're in that other phase, like during the day where, we've talked about lots of different things like box breathing or all these different strategies.
Right.
But we've only ever talked about them like when you're up or in a situation.
Absolutely. And this is this whole like nighttime anxiety overtaking us there are certain people who are more vulnerable to this than others. Really high performing people.
Get night terrors.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, that's a different thing though.
Yeah.
Because that's linked to like nightmares and but this anxiety that overtakes us, folks who are very high functioning.
Yeah.
Folks who are caregivers. They're really susceptible because if you think about the level and the type of distraction that's occurring during the day and then the sudden absence of that on the overnight, right?
Yeah.
And then our system is changing gears what it's focusing on, and then it opens the door for all of those thoughts to come in and feelings, right? And then people who are emotionally avoidant, whether it's on purpose or not.
Stop talking about
people
me.
who, I don't know, maybe decide to put their emotions in a box on the shelf.
I don't know.
In the closet, which you've talked about before. That feels really, sounds familiar. But yeah, so emotionally avoidant people, either like naturally or like without even realizing it or on purpose, whatever, are more vulnerable to that because there comes a point where you aren't going to be able to avoid it. And then folks who are sort of like, that's like later's problem, I'm too busy, that are very aware of being distracted and being too busy, and they'll deal with it later. Well, guess what nighttime
does? Yeah.
It's later. So now
there's nothing going on, so it all can all creep and rush in on you.
Yes. And so I think that's another reason that all of this happens, right? And
it's kind of, I guess a little bit like when you hear a bang or something during the day, you're like, oh, a tree must have fallen.
It's in context something of like things living and moving and breathing and daytime activity, and then you hear that same noise at night.
And you're like, whoa,
it doesn't fit. It's out of context now, And I think I think that brings us to the point about isolation, right? So we talked about darkness, right? Changing our perception of threat. Isolation also does that, right? It amplifies and increases like rumination and hyperfixation, and again, that absence of distraction. There's not other people that we're bouncing things off of. There's not TVs on. There's not any of that, right? And so we're alone, literally alone.
It's
with our
just
thoughts.
You and your thoughts. You're just alone.
Maybe
with
the cat
inside
I don't know.
your head.
And that's it, right? And so everything tends to feel more permanent, more catastrophic. I think our perception of like time and impact is horrible at like 1 a.m. and 2 a.m.
Oh, right?
The night feels endless. The darkness is overwhelming. The isolation is loud, and so therefore our stressors and our anxieties feel just as loud, just as permanent, just as threatening. And they exist in that world. It's like, again, going back to the movies. If you're watching somebody walk hesitantly across the floor,
right,
in a crowded grocery store.
Doesn't matter.
Not going to elicit the same emotions as if you're watching somebody do the same walk hesitantly across the floor
in the dark,
in darkness with creepy music.
Yes,
with no one else around, right? Like it's careful editing, and at night our brain does careful editing, and our stressors and our anxiety feel bigger and more permanent, more catastrophic. So I think that's really interesting. Also your coping skills kind of go offline at night.
Yeah, you're very, I don't want to say you're logical and rational during the day, but people that they're usually more logical and rational.
I feel personally attacked, but okay, thanks.
It was the broad
general,
you,
okay,
not you, Laura. It was like you, meaning me and the rest of the world.
That was great. Yes. Some people are logical and practical during the day. Yes,
but you're more likely to be tapping into that.
Yes,
and using your prefrontal cortex. Absolutely. And thinking things through during the day.
And like just by nature of it being the end of the day, you're tired.
Yeah.
You're tired. You're not going to be able to access those coping skills
and you get,
the same way.
Even before it's night, you're asleep when you start getting decision fatigue.
Yes.
Yeah, it just all leads right into that. And then I guess just gets worse when you go to sleep.
8 a.m. you is not the same as midnight you.
That is true.
And your access to your coping skills and your resilient tools and all of that, right, is different. logic, like you said, is just not, it's not as front and center. And easy to access. That's when, and there's like, you know, we're at rest and we're ruminating and we're imagining. And so it's, you know, we're running scenarios, whether we know it or not, you know? And so all of this logic sort of takes a back seat. And I find that in those moments, those negative thoughts and those fears and those concerns, they just feel, they're just so much more convincing.
They're loud and they're big.
Yes.
And they just, it almost seems like you don't have, well, it doesn't almost seem like you don't have control of them.
Yes, it just feels like you, loud and big is such a great way to describe that. But yeah, it's all more convincing. It all feels more catastrophic, and it's harder to access what you need in order to
yeah, because all you're really trying. I'm thinking now about me when that happens to me. I'm just trying to push it away and stay asleep. I'm doing anything I can. Not to combat the thoughts necessarily, but just to get rid of them so I can sleep.
Go to bed. Yeah.
So I can go back to sleep.
And you know, as a society, we know this. We already know this, because how many times have you heard, like, well, sleep on it. Well, you'll feel better in the morning. The light of day, right? Like, there's a million cliches that address this directly, but I also don't feel like people are really talking about it. Yeah. Talking about how overwhelming it can feel at night. And 6 hours ago, you were fine. And as soon as you get some sleep, you're going to feel, yes, there's some truth to your system resets and you got rest and you were able to access those skills, but there's also just so much truth to just nighttime can feel more anxious. It can just feel more threatening.
Always. Yeah. It's like if you're walking through a parking lot at night, you
Same
know, by
parking
yourself,
lot,
you're like,
not scary during the day,
what?
Even if it's empty, right?
Yeah.
Even if you're still by yourself and it's just as isolating, it's just not as scary when the lights are on, you know? And so I think there's, you know, certain fears and thoughts and the intrusive ones that we have, they hit harder at night. They hit harder when we're trying to sleep. And we know how important sleep is. We've had whole episodes on it, more than one, right? Different angles of like sleep hygiene and the importance of sleep and sleep as self-care and all of that. We know that when we don't get rest, it has negative impacts on our mental.
So you're having anxiety. It's breaking your sleep. So you're not feeling very well, and then you start believing anything negative that comes to mind.
Not the good stuff.
Not the good stuff. You start just doubting yourself, and
that's a big part of it. Like you almost doubt your own, like the things you know to be true, you know, and you start to think like, is there something wrong with me? Like, is that, you know, am I not okay? Like, you know, and
you believe stuff that you wouldn't believe during the day when it's set in your head at night.
Yep. And I think that's really interesting.
Self-assurance gone.
And then it starts to feel like, I don't know, particularly again, like going back to the cliches, light of day, right? It's a little embarrassing, feels a little dramatic. Right. Yeah. And you start to feel like, again, that brokenness and that guilt and shame of like, there's something wrong with me. When it's just, I think it's a really untalked about part of our just sleep cycle and sleep and waking cycle, and how things feel different and behave differently within us, daytime, nighttime, and different phases of the day. Right. And
so then that like with all the different things that you've said so far, that makes me think that you've got it all together during the day.
Yeah.
You're really a together person.
Like I've seen it, you know, like, and that I feel that way sometimes because I experience this, not a lot, but but this to me, when I get the nighttime anxiety, that's always a red flag for me, that like, there's something that I'm avoiding dealing with during the day, or there's something that I haven't found a solution to yet, or there's something that's really bothering me, and I'm very high functioning during the day, and I'm able to just, you know, it's not that it's not still there, but it shows up at night just in a different way and much more profoundly. But I think there are things that we can do that are really helpful, and one of the things that I have found that I'm excited about trying. I actually have not tried this yet. Full disclosure, I have not tried this yet. But I read about it, and I'm 1,000%, not just saying this for the sake of the podcast, 1,000% going to be implementing this, because I think it's brilliant. Because I'm a person that has the notebook that I jot my ideas down in anyway.
I used to do that. I'd keep something. I used to solve, well, this is a little bit different. We're talking about anxiety, but I used to solve problems in my sleep.
Nice.
Like I'd have problems at work, and the solutions would come to me while I was sleeping.
This is the exact opposite almost.
Yeah.
But so again, that's your mind
but the
at
tool
rest.
I kept, I kept a notepad next to me so I could get up and write, 3 whatever, blah, blah, blah,
your idea
and go back to
came you at
sleep.
night.
Yeah. It is the exact opposite.
But that's cool. I think that's neat. But I am going to implement that, right? I'm going to implement the opposite of that, where like those things, you have to do something with those thoughts.
Yeah, because you wake up, you write it down, and then it's contained, it's held, it's there for you.
Specifically,
so you can,
what I read about very specifically is writing them down to deal with them tomorrow. Right. So it's like, I can't solve, like the recognition that I can't solve it at night, that I don't have the capacity to come up with the appropriate solution in these overnight hours, but my brain's going to turn back on in the morning and my adrenaline's going to spike again in the morning. Right. And the light of day is going to be better and I'm going to be able to access the tools that I need to solve this problem, but let me capture it so I don't forget it. Right. And I think what I'm anticipating and I'm excited about and I'm hoping happens is that some of what I write down, I will not retain. Like I will look at it and I will decide that was a nighttime thing.
That was just a weird thing.
That was a weird thing.
Get rid of it.
That really doesn't need my attention, but I think I'll notice patterns and maybe the things that do need my attention will come up over and over and over again. And if I can solve those or address those, maybe the overall anxiety will go down.
I read an article at some point a long time ago, and I'll still do this sometimes when the things are running around in my head at night. I try to, if I have the wherewithal, because you don't always, I try to like visually watch them go by, acknowledge them, but not try to solve them.
Oh, like a visualization.
Yeah, like this. I can't even think of an example. I don't know where this is a dumb example, but it's the only thing I can come up with right now. I don't know where the cups go. So then I'm asleep and it's keeping me awake. The thoughts, the anxiety about it, but then I just watch it go by and acknowledge that it exists and let it pass by.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I like that because that goes back to like some of those like long-standing things that we always heard, like counting sheep.
That's what it makes me think of.
It's like, well, go by. I got to figure out the cups tomorrow. Cool. Yeah. I got to figure out, just let it go. Just let it keep going. You didn't solve it. You didn't, but you acknowledged it and you let it keep going. Right. And so I think that is very cool. Right. I think that also there is, when we do things like watch it go by or keep the nighttime journal, hold kind of like a holding pen for things for tomorrow. And maybe we can even give ourselves like, like, I don't know, when I like read at night, it's like, okay, I'm going to read for 20 minutes. Maybe I'm just going to ruminate for 30 minutes, right? Give myself a little window, right? And then it's over. I think that there's an anxiety, follow me here. Yeah. There's an anxiety about having the anxiety.
Yes.
That I think is very real in any situation where you have something at stake. And at night, it's like
sleep is at stake.
And I'm clock watching and I'm going, I have to get up for work.
Okay. And
if
I go to sleep now, 5 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours.
And then you start to have this panic over experiencing the anxiety in the first place. Yeah. And I think if you can harness it in any kind of way, whether it's like the counting sheep version or the putting it in a journal or making it time bound, whatever it is, and you've taken some control over that, and that might reduce that panic of having the anxiety in the first place, right? So I think that's an important
when I wake up from anxiety, I'll put the TV on very low so that I can almost not hear it, but I have to put on something that I'm very familiar with. So like rerun stuff that I've watched a million times, because if it's something new, I'll start trying to pay attention to it. But if it's super low and it's very familiar to me, it'll just let me go to sleep. It just, my mind just starts, but I can fill in the blanks. I know all the words.
Right. That's almost like an exit ramp, right? To
that's a good way to look at it. Yeah,
because it's not a distraction. It's not like the daytime distractions, because it's like an autopilot that your brain is able to be occupied with something.
Right.
That's not enough of a distraction
that I have to pay attention
to.
Yeah. And I'll usually go right back to sleep when I do that.
Yeah. And I can't do that part. I've got to do like white noise or brown noise.
Yeah.
I don't remember the color noise that's called, but it's very similar to like when people like the like rainforest noises, and every now and then you'll hear a monkey. Yeah. Right. That jolts me awake.
Yeah.
But that's a specific type of noise.
Yeah.
I don't remember what color. But
yeah.
I think like your very familiar TV shows are the same. You
Right.
know, where like there's a fluctuation in noises and and maybe even in like cadence and frequency and volume and all of that.
Probably.
But it's a familiar one.
Yeah.
So it's a pattern you can identify and your brain responds to that. So for me, it's got to be the white or the brown noise. I like the brown noise better. But that gives me sort of an off ramp, you know, a place for my brain to go, and that can be really helpful too. And then audiobooks is another one, because sometimes the visual, if we're too visually stimulated with the light on the TV and stuff, so for a lot of people that can be too much of a distraction to be able to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So something
pillow
that's
over my head when I do that. I would just put one of the pillows across my head.
You should put a blanket over the TV.
That would involve me getting up.
Yeah,
though.
that's true.
And then it's all over.
Then we're done.
Then
now
it's
we're
up.
awake.
Now we're up.
I'm
I might as well just watch a new show.
Making some coffee, watching a new show. But
But
yeah.
that could work for some people, yeah.
Well, and I think what's nice about these approaches, though, it's like, because you hear a lot of negative about that, like, oh, the TV at night, blah, blah, blah. But if you're using the tools,
It was just a tool. I don't normally have it on.
And
yeah.
if you're using white noise or brown noise or TV or an audiobook, right, it's about regulating the distractions and therefore harnessing and controlling the anxiety, which we just identified as a skill we're lacking in those overnight hours.
Right.
And so I think that's a really nice way to reintroduce some regulation, which is very needed in these situations. So I think that's good. And instead of like avoiding it or trying to talk our way out of it or trying to solve all the problems, we're really just coping.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the key is the coping is what has to occur overnight in order for us to sleep, not solving.
Yeah, because
we're not gonna do it. It's not gonna happen, right?
What did your parents always say when you were younger? Nothing good happens after midnight.
Right.
Like, better be home at 11. Nothing good ever happens after midnight.
Nothing good ever happens after midnight.
Yeah.
That is true. As the parent of a teenager, I can attest.
Yes, for sure.
But, you know, one of the things I think we owe ourselves when we have these experiences is to take a look at it by the light of day, right? Really take a look, be like, okay, what was that about? Whether it's revisiting the journal or just
I was going to say, if I wrote
up.
it down, I don't normally remember it the next day.
Oh, really? Even
Yeah,
just the,
I
like,
don't. Yeah.
Even the anxiety feelings. Okay.
Maybe the feelings, but not anything that
like concrete that you were worried about necessarily.
I know sometimes people have anxiety and they don't know what it's about. It's just anxiety.
Sometimes it's just the feeling. It's not about anything specific. But if we have intrusive thoughts or we're ruminating over something, we might remember those to be able to sort of process them. But usually I think when we have anxiety at night, it means there was something unresolved in the day.
Yeah.
And it's worth taking a look at, especially if we don't want to keep repeating this pattern. So really just asking those hard questions the next day, like, okay, what was that about? What did I go into the evening with?
Right.
What did I carry with me that was unresolved, you know? And then, you know, sometimes it's a byproduct of us powering through something we already know was stressful. Right.
Yeah.
So, and it's
just something I'm avoiding during the day.
Yeah. Or I just have
whatever,
the luxury of it. You know, it's just, it was a really stressful day. I knew it was stressful. I coped the best I could. I powered through it. I pushed through, but I didn't really deal with it. And then I was exhausted and I tried to go to sleep, right? That can really cause a lot of those that nighttime anxiety. I think too, like for me, now that we're saying it out loud, that happens, that's when I get just the feelings and I might not know exactly,
right?
You know, because I just sort of trained myself all day to just be like this. And then I expect that to just be shut off when I didn't actually deal with anything, you know, and I just expect that to be shut off at night. So, and it doesn't. So I think, you know, and this is a reoccurring theme with a lot of stuff we talk about, but that pulse check.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Just how do I feel?
How do
what am I
feel?
capable
What's
of
going
on?
Yeah. Like doing that before you go to sleep.
And when you wake up after you've had that experience on the overnight, like I think there's a beauty in the proactive use of that and in the sort of debriefing of our anxiety. Like, you know, what's my capacity? What didn't I deal with? What was that about? You know, how am I feeling now versus how was I feeling then? You know, and maybe the proactive pieces, is there anything I have to deal with before I'm able to shut it off for the night, you know, and then that can maybe be preventative if we try to do that. But I think writing down what we don't have time to feel, checking in with our bodies, checking in with our emotional bandwidth.
Yeah.
You know, I think those things can be really important. And to remember that, like, if your anxiety shows up at night, it usually just means that your nervous system has finally, like, calmed down enough to process something. And your charge is to kind of
so
figure
it's
out
not
what
really
is that?
it's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's showing up in a way
Just
that's
in
not
a bad
serving
way.
us.
That's not serving us well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's not inherently bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's again, these are all like ways in which our body is trying to communicate with us. And so knowing that, like, there's something there worth looking at versus just chalking it up to a bad night, I think can help prevent it from repeating itself.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So I think takeaway, we can try to journal, we can pulse check, we can check in, we can try to watch the anxiety go by, we can keep a notebook, write things down, we can take a few minutes before we go to sleep and process things during the day that might show up.
Absolutely.
What do you do?
What do you do? Because
Yeah.
you got to do something. Don't avoid it.
Yep.
It's not avoiding you.
Yeah.
So tell us what you do and let us know how that worked out for you. Thanks so much for joining us.
See you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Brain Factor. Joy and I are so thrilled to be having these needed conversations. We'd love to hear your feedback on this episode, so if you could drop a comment or leave a review with your thoughts or any requests that you may have, it would be appreciated. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Living a healthier and happier life starts with one step, and we're excited to be on this journey with you. Until next time.